I'd like to talk to you about what quality coaching looks like from non-quality and how people searching can differentiate.
You can go online and you can just find coaches, just like you can go online and find therapists, right, or anything else. The thing I love about our organization, the company that I get to work with, is half of our clientele comes from professional referrals. So it's
Wow.
individuals who we've already worked with other of their clients, and so they've seen the results. We have some trust there. We have some credibility with them, and the other almost half comes from client referral, so either current or alumni client referrals, which to me is a huge measurement of success.
Right.
If I'm getting referrals from families of clients I've already worked with, that tells me I'm doing something right. And so I'd look at who's referring to them, who else are they working with, and not just, I found this guy online and he's not very expensive, or he looks great on paper, or whatever the case may be. But really fill it out, see who they're working with, what their background is, what their approaches are, and really what their way of being is. Like who are they?
What's up, everybody? My name's Garrett. Today I'm talking to Sheldon Nelson on coaching, what it is, and who it's for. Sheldon, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. So we've had nurse practitioners on the show, we've had therapists on the show, but there's more avenues than that for helping people and for people improving and growing. So I'd like to talk to you about what coaching is, who it's for, and sort of get into the nitty gritty of how it works. So can you start by just kind of introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sheldon. We do in-home and activity-based coaching. So what that looks like is we get referrals either from psychiatrists, therapists, schools, or people just find us online. So we can work individually, or we can work with a team of people to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the treatment plan of each client.
Cool. So let's start with just kind of defining the coaching niche. So providers, people like what we do here at Redemption, it's medication management focused. And actually one of the biggest problems we have is people come in and they're like, I'm here for, an hour-long therapy appointment to discuss everything. And we're like, we actually can't do that. We'll see you for like an hour or more at your first appointment to get to know you. But as we go on, it's more like a follow-up with your primary care doctor where like you're not going to do a full therapy session, right? So there's that, and we obviously offer like a really important niche, and I'm really passionate about what we do. Then there's therapy, which is, I think, what most people first think of when they think of mental health.
Right.
And it's usually like an hour or so, either weekly or every other week. And it's really effective, but usually it's focused, at least in my experience, on conditions and trauma, right? So it's focused on ADHD, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, right? Really toxic and tumultuous relationships. And both of these modalities have their limits. And one of the biggest limits is actually having continuous effectiveness, right? Just doing life with the person in need, the client, we'll say. Partially because it just doesn't work on an economic standpoint a lot of times, especially just because of how insurance works. But also because just like our requirements for like patient-provider confidentiality and the rules for keeping boundaries between yourself and your clients.
Yes.
So I think I'm really excited to learn more about coaching. I think it's really important, which is one of the reasons why I'm monologuing so terribly. So can you walk me through what exactly you do as a coach and how that differs in...
Yeah, for sure. So basically, on kind of a day-to-day, we get to customize our services for each family. Is the first thing that I love about that. So we're not so tightly marked into a certain, like, we have to do ABC. We have these check marks we have to do. So we can meet with a family from the start. We do a free consultation. We see where their needs are, and then we start to develop a plan from there. Whether it's the child's not going to school, or whether it's the child needs therapy but then refuses to go, or whether they are just struggling with some anxiety. They've already seen a psychiatrist. They're getting the medications they need, but they just needed some additional help, some hands-on, or some feet on some feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And so we get to go in home and start to work with that. So we recently had an individual who was struggling to go to school. The anxiety was just too much. She could go and do talk therapy, and she could sit with them, and it was helpful. But then when it came time to go to school, it was still a huge struggle. And so we are mobile, so we're able to show up to the house, sit with them, help them be comfortable, drive them to school if we need to, walk in with them, get them checked in, or in a situation where they're just refusing to go to school, we can go and sit down with them, resolve the concern, build that quick relationship with them, and then take them to school, sign them in, get them dropped off. We get to work with a lot of de-escalation as we build the relationship, and I'll talk a lot about relationship today because it's so important to what we do, and I think that's the reason why we're successful, is because we can go in and build this relationship. So we get to the point where we have a good enough relationship with most of our clients that when they're starting to escalate, having meltdowns, having anxiety attacks, having boundary issues with parents, so that where they get a little bit aggressive, that our goal is to have a good enough relationship that we can hop on the phone with them and de-escalate them over the phone, which oftentimes we can. The first few times, sometimes we have to show up out there at their house. If we're available, we'll show up and say, hey, what's going on? Let's take a walk. Let's just take a walk in the neighborhood. Let's go shoot some hoops. Just to get them out of the environment that's triggering them, help them calm down, and to start to put some things in place, some debrief, some immediate debrief. So it's not like, okay, a week, 2 weeks later, now I'm getting into the office to talk about what happened 2 weeks ago, and now I'm like, I don't even know what happened. We can debrief it right in the moment. We can set up some new goals for to help prevent it for the future.
That's really great, because I think one of the big issues that mental health has in being effective and actually just implementing it is implementing it at time of crisis, right? Not prior to, not after, but at time of crisis, because that's actually when you're in some ways the most plastic, right? Because you're confronted with a problem, your brain's trying to solve the problem. That's when you need the solution, not I've come up with my own solution to the problem, which may not be ideal, but that's not what my brain's going to do next time. And after that's all been kind of locked into the brain, you're like, okay, let's try something different. Cool.
Right. And there's research out that shows that even just a debrief of an incident within 24 to 48 hours, different people will say different hours there, but somewhere in that range, will decrease the trauma that can happen from an incident. And so if we can keep, if we can go in first off and debrief an incident with a child, help eliminate the trauma for child and family, help level it out, oftentimes slow it down, solve it quicker. But then also the other side of it is we can keep a child from having to go to emergency care, where maybe they get restrained, or maybe they feel more forced at that point for their safety. There's a place and a need for that. But it's not what we do. It's if we can go in and de-escalate them using words and using skills to keep them from having to enter a higher level of care, to help avoid some of those traumatic events that occur when they go there. It's a win for us. So it's huge. So we're kind of passionate about that. So if we can do a lot of prevention work to help things go right for these families.
So what kind of strategies and stuff do you use when you're in crisis or I should say when they're in crisis, to help?
Yeah. So a lot of times people will look at these, like all these techniques, right? And I've gone through the crisis intervention training. I've gone through clinical first responder training. But really it always comes back to that, for me, that relationship. If I can build a quick relationship, and the quickest way for me to build a relationship is my way of being. If I'm not being honest with them, these teenagers, these kids, they're smart. They're smart. They know, they can feel it. They're just like, are you being real with me right now? But if I can just go in and be authentic and just really just build the relationship with them. Just sit with them. Sometimes it's just a matter of sitting with them through it. Sometimes it's a matter of just taking a walk with them. If they want to cry, they can cry. If they want to yell, they can yell. If they need to swear, they can swear. Like just being in the moment with them,
Yep.
and letting things just happen organically, and just being there as a peaceful third party individual, just to help them walk through it.
That's really beautiful. I think, it goes back to the homage, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Kids weren't really made to be raised in isolation, and kids, like, as a parent to a child, you're actually not meant to be the child's doctor, therapist, nutritionist. Like, you're meant to be the parent.
Right.
And while there may have been a time and place where you could sort of do all those things, it's not really applicable in a modern society. And I'm not going to get into why that is, for better or for worse, bigger than me. But I think that's why this is so necessary. So one of the things I'd really like to talk to you about is, I've seen your work, I've seen kind of what you do, and was really impressed by it. So I'd like to talk to you about, like, how do you become a coach?
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a coach, how do you determine the quality of a coach? Because therapists, there's definitely a spectrum of quality in therapists. And I don't think that's rude to say. I think all therapists and patients know that, just like there is for medication management providers, right?
Right.
But they do have boards that manage their licensure, and that's not true with coaching.
It's true.
And so, while I'm kind of tipping my hand here, I am a big believer in coaching. I'd like to talk to you about what quality coaching looks like from non-quality, and how people searching can differentiate.
You can go online and you can just find coaches, just like you can go online and find therapists, right? Or anything else. The thing I love about our organization, the company that I get to work with, is half of our clientele comes from professional referrals. So it's
Wow.
individuals who we've already worked with other of their clients, and so they've seen the results. We have some trust there. We have some credibility with them, and the other almost half comes from client referral, so either current or alumni client referrals, which to me is a huge measurement of success.
Right.
If I'm getting referrals from families of clients I've already worked with, that tells me I'm doing something right.
Your reputation precedes you.
And so we have families who new clients, if they want to, can call, who volunteered, said, yes, put our number, like, you can give our number, we'll talk to them from a parent point of view of why coaching was successful. We don't have to use that very often because they're already getting referred from either families or professionals they already trust. And so I'd look at who's referring to them, who else are they working with, and not just, I found this guy online and he's not very expensive, or he looks great on paper, or whatever the case may be. But really fill it out, see who they're working with, what their background is, what their approaches are, and really what their way of being is. Like, who are they?
Yeah, it strikes me that worldview and life perspective could play a very big role. This is true, again, with sort of all people who work in the mental health sphere, right? If you're going to be seen by a therapist, you're going to be more comfortable if they believe generally what you believe, if they interact with the world in a way that you can relate to, or that is similar to your perspective, whether that's culture, religion, sort of personality type, whatever it may be. Do you guys factor that in when you're trying to assign? Or
Yeah, so we do have a team of coaches.
Okay.
A lot of them come from different backgrounds. We have one coach that's just, he loves working with more autistic children. And while we're not like advertising, like, hey, bring, like, we're not advertising for that, but if we are working with somebody with low needs autism, we have the option of putting this individual with who has gone and worked in other realms with only autistic children. So it's so we have those specialties. Like I say, we don't advertise for that necessarily, but we're aware of it in the background of, okay, we're not here to work with this necessarily, but to treat it, I should say. We're not here to treat it, but we understand it, and we're here to support it and to help move it forward. So we make sure we have female coaches. We make sure we have male coaches. Some people are just more comfortable naturally with a male or female. Maybe it's because it's the same gender. Maybe it's because it's the opposite gender. Who knows why? It doesn't really matter. But we have options. So we have older individuals. We have younger individuals, and really, it's just we want the best fit for each client and each client family. If they're not comfortable, it slows the work down. And so we want them to be comfortable. We want them to be able to have that good, open, honest, trusting relationship.
So how does caseload work? Because like, I know there are some therapists that engage with like OCD, sort of dialectical behavioral therapy, where they're on call with their patient load 24/7, right? If their patient's having an OCD attack, they can call their therapist right then and there. Start talking to them, and while there's some evidence to show that it's pretty effective, the burnout on the therapist is inordinate, right? Very few of them do it for more than a few years.
Right.
So how does your caseload work? How do you manage that? Do you ever get to go to bed with your phone off? Like, what does that look like?
So we don't guarantee that we have 24-hour service. We make sure we're not guaranteeing that. However, with that being said, we are completely willing. Like, I've always said that the work that we do, it's more than a job; it's a lifestyle.
Right.
And I live by that. Like, 20 years in behavioral health, and in wilderness therapy, you're there. You're living there. When I wasn't in the field, I was on call. So it was just it's for me, it's very natural. It's just a natural thing. If somebody needs something, let's call. Let's get you the help you need. Now, like I said, we're careful not to guarantee that 24-hour service, because we don't have somebody waiting by the phone all the time. However, anytime we are available as they call, I will pick up. We will answer that call. Or we'll call them back quickly. Like, I am doing other sessions. I am doing other things. And they know that. And they know that if it's a real emergency, then there's other avenues to take, and they need to take those other avenues. Right. But yeah, for me, it's just I have a passion for what I do, and it really is. It's more. It's more
on your face.
It's more than a job. It's a lifestyle.
Do you primarily see kids or only see kids? What's your age range?
So as a whole, at Crossroads Discovery, we see a whole range of from younger kids to parents. Really, like, we have a parent coach who's just there for parent coaching. Right. We have a young adult coach who primarily works with just the young adults. I'm there. Most of who I work with is the youth, the younger kids and the teenager. I do have young adults, and I actually do take on some parent clients, but I think I'm the only coach there that takes on the full range. But my specialty is working with teenagers and these younger kids, and that's the population that I mostly get assigned to my caseload.
Yeah. Do you work a lot with people who are, or kids and families who are in sort of complicated, how should I say it, situations where maybe Child Protective Services have been involved, court disputes, high complex, like divorces? Is this?
Yeah. We have a high client load of single parent homes, whether the father's been incarcerated or mother for that matter, but whether one parent has been incarcerated or is out of the picture, or whether it's just even if it's a 50-50 separation, sometimes we may be meeting at one house, and other times we may be meeting at another house. So we see the whole spectrum of this. And sometimes the clientele load that we take on is just a very simple. We're going in, we're just giving them some good life skills and just moving them forward. Just a lot of prevention and mentoring, and we're just going in. We see them weekly, and it's just a weekly session, and that's it. And that's no, that's fine. For the complex situations you're talking about, where a child may come in and they may have a probation officer, and they're in the juvenile court system. We've showed up to court with them before, after we've worked with them for a little bit to be able to advocate for them, to show what they have accomplished. We will help them with their community service hours, help them make sure they get set up. When the parents telling them, hey, you got to get these community service hours set up, you got to get these things, oftentimes it's, they give some pushback.
Yep.
But if we can go in and help them set that up, help them walk through that, we'll show up and actually do the volunteer hours with them if we need to. And so we do get to work with a very wide range of situations, from the legal system to working with therapists. We've worked with, for example, we've had some clients who just had such high anxiety they struggled to leave home. Right. At all, whether it's
agoraphobic.
Whether it's a child or a lot of it's young adults that we've worked with that. But we can show up to their house, and maybe that's just walking outside and sitting on the porch with them. Maybe that's starting to venture out and just take a little lap around the block. Maybe that's just sitting in the truck outside their house, to give them the experience. But we can work closely with the therapist. They're doing the therapy, but we can be there to be the eyes, the ears, the hands on, to actually help them move forward in those things. So yeah, so what I would consider some high complex cases, which we love.
How did COVID affect your work? I'm very curious.
Yeah, so we actually launched in 2020.
Okay,
the Crossroads Discovery officially. We had ran some some camps and some weekend activities and some stuff a little bit prior to that, starting in 2019. But we really launched into the coaching realm in 2020. And so we were kind of dead into it. But a lot of these families needed the outlet. And because we were able to show up at homes, obviously there was some restrictions with limitations. But where we do a lot of our coaching outside, I love nature. I love outside. I love bringing in just natural spaces. You don't have to go out into the wilderness necessarily to be in nature. You can go sit in the grass. You can go sit by a duck pond. You can go. And so where we were able to work outside, we also got around some of those COVID restrictions safely, between masks and outdoor spaces, where we actually thrived in that realm of actually being able to move forward. The kids didn't have to show up in an office, or maybe the offices were closed. Also, a lot of the things, as you know, went to virtual at that point. We do have a virtual option, although it kind of goes against.
Seems like it breaks.
It goes against everything that I feel is natural, but sometimes it's necessary.
Sure.
And so we do have the option, and we are able to work with people out of state, and the state boundaries and stuff don't affect us as much. So we do some virtual stuff, which was really launched during that whole COVID, which is more natural now since the COVID stage.
Yeah. Yeah. It really changed perspective for the whole world, it seemed, on sort of digital communication. So, I mean, you've kind of been answering this question the whole time so far, but one of the things that I'm curious about is, with coaching, there's sort of infinite variety, right? So I've seen people who are business coaches, athletic coaches. Athletic trainers are debatably sort of the basic model, right? And coaching just applies that to every other aspect besides just building a muscle. But there's so much variety in sort of modality and target, right? Whether that's helping you with your business prospects, or communication skills, or sort of dealing with your anxiety, and sort of almost like exposure therapy. So I'm kind of curious, what do you do? What do you do? What are your targets? What do you like to do the most?
Yeah. So I love de-escalation naturally. That's where, so when I worked in the emergency department, I was just there as a behavioral specialist. But after I went through that crisis intervention training, I got to go and really respond to when people were really escalated. And I just love that. That's always been if I can help somebody de-escalate, that's my jam. But I love a lot of other things about it as well. I love when you go into a home and you're meeting with a client, and you can just see, oftentimes their eyes are dark when they're struggling with stuff, whether it's them feeling some shame about the labels or diagnoses, and sometimes it's new diagnoses, and they're not sure how to adjust to it, or what to think about it, or how is my peers going to see me now that I've been diagnosed with ABC, whatever it is. And so oftentimes I refer to myself, or we refer to us as discovery coaches, and which can mean a lot of things, right? It kind of translates into like behavioral coach. But when you go into a home and you're like, hey, I'm here as a behavioral coach, and they're like, okay, here we go again.
Right.
You're just somebody else that mom and dad are bringing in to try to fix me. And we don't believe it's like that. We're not there to fix anybody. If anything, if you want to look at it in the realm of like, we're not a mechanic to fix something. If we're looking in the realm of cars, we're more of a tow truck. You're just stuck. Like sometimes people are just stuck. They just need to be pulled back onto the path.
You just need a new tire.
Yeah, they just need a little tow. Yeah, or
Not
a tire change or whatever it is. Like they just need a little bit of adjustment to get back on the path to start moving again. So yeah, we fall into the realm of behavioral coaching. But I love the term discovery coaching because it can mean so much, whether it's self-discovery, whether it's discovering the environment around me, whether it's discovering someone else, my family, what makes the family unit work and what makes it not work. There's a lot to be said in discovery. And so we focused in a lot on discovery of, okay, what's your discovery today? So in a normal session, after we meet or an activity and we go, whether it's an individual activity or we do group activities as well, after we get to know the child, and sometimes they can really benefit from a group. So you start to actually see some of the things that the parents were talking about, like they don't get along well in with others, or they get along great, but they have a little anxiety around others, or whatever it is. But to help them, and we sit down and ask them afterwards, what did we discover today? And we want to get them to the point where they're really trying to pull a discovery from everything. We believe at every crossroads, life crossroads, there's a discovery. There's a discovery to be had if we take the time to find it. So that's where the area we work in is in that discovery coaching realm.
That's very cool. I think it's interesting because one of the things I've noticed, maybe I shouldn't say have noticed. One of the things I've theorized, I'm too young to say I've noticed, is that younger people seem to be struggling with some of the more basic tasks. And a really good example of this is there's a YouTube channel. I don't remember its exact name, but it's like the YouTube Dad or something of such. And it's just a guy who teaches, and his videos are like how to shave, how to tie a tie, how do you tie your shoes, how do you write a resume. And it seems like a lot of these skills are longed for and missed.
Yes.
And a lot of times anxiety, depression, they stem from singular big events, right? Or like repeated traumas. And that's something we talk about on the show a lot. And my heart really goes out to that. But something I think is really under-discussed is that sometimes the depression and the anxiety goes from the fact that you just never learned how to play football, and so every time it comes up in gym class to play flag, you feel terrible, and you never really learned how to you didn't learn how to tie your shoes, right? This is so obvious, right? It's like such a simple task, but if no one shows it to you, especially if you're a kid, like Googling it isn't really self-evident, and that's like really frustrating to do, and it's really it can invoke a lot of negative emotion because the whole time you're doing it, you're like, why is it that I have to Google this while all my friends, they just got their parents to teach them, right? And so it seems like more and more so, a lot of the neuroticism and negative emotions that people are experiencing are because of a direct need for life skills, which is why I'm so interested in the coaching, why I want to talk to you today.
Yeah, awesome.
Would you say that's kind of what you've been dealing with?
I think you're dead on, and I'd like to speak to that. So the life skills is a very important realm. I mean, really what we're doing is life skills. Now, so I say we oftentimes say we're working on life skills. We're working with the behavioral clientele, the clientele who fall into this like behavioral needs arena, but we are really working on the life skills with them. And life skills, I mean, we talked about building a relationship. How do you build a relationship? That's a huge life skill, right? Yes. Whether I want to get a job, I mean, before I even go into interview, can I get along with somebody? Right. Where are the cues?
How do you compliment someone?
Yes, exactly. And so while we do sit down, which is the less exciting part of what we do, we do sit down and help people write a resume. We do sit down and actually help people practice interviewing. for their first job, or maybe it's their 10th job. Who, like, it doesn't matter. Sure. But like we really sit down and we do all those things. Mm-hmm. But the big thing that I wanted to touch on, and we can go back to whatever part of it you want, but the big thing I wanted to make sure we didn't miss is that support. So it's really just the support. So whether I know how to do something or not, there's a huge benefit in just knowing that there's somebody next to me. Mm-hmm. There's somebody behind me. There's somebody got my back. If I fell, there's somebody that's gonna catch me, right? I'm a lot more likely to try something if I know there's somebody there that can step in and say, "Hey, I gotcha." Like, you're not gonna make a complete fool of yourself. Like, yeah. I'll help you through this process. And so whether that's somebody trying out for a basketball team, okay, I'm gonna go. Maybe we show up and we just shooting hoops with them while we're talking. It's confidence building, right? Mm-hmm. We're helping them achieve something, so we'll go shoot hoops. Whether it's okay, now it's game day and you're nervous, but don't worry, I'm going to be in the stands. I'm going to be sitting out there watching you. Yep. If something goes crazy, ultimately I'm going to be right over there. Like, I'll just walk down. I'll walk down to the sidelines if I have to. Mm-hmm. We rarely need to, but they know there's the support. They know there's somebody there that cares about them, that's supporting them, regardless of if they win or fail. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change the fact of how our support is for them, or what our level of care is for them. So just a lot of confidence built in knowing that you have support. That's where very strong, intact families, or families who have a lot of whether it's outside support or other support, why a lot of times you see the children thrive, whether it's divorced families or intact families, whatever. If they have the support, they thrive. And if they're feeling that lack of support, oftentimes we start to see the behavioral struggles. And so it's just a very simple baseline skill of just going in and just saying, "Hey, I'm here. If you need me, call me." And some of these kiddos they rarely call or text, and some of them text and call all the time. Yes. But it's okay if they know that they can. Oftentimes they don't need to, because they know they can. They know it's an option.
Redemption Psychiatry is a private practice located in Central Arizona. We focus on advanced treatments for depression, anxiety, and ADHD, as well as medication management and neurological testing. If you or a loved one is struggling with your mental health and lives in the greater Phoenix area, feel free to give us a call or visit our website today. Thanks. That makes me think of sort of like play drive. So we're mammals, we have a play drive, and the point of play isn't to play. The point of play is to learn how to be an adult, actually, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why boys play fight, is because they're learning how to actually fight less, how to regulate their physical bodies, so that when they're older and their physical actions have more consequences, they're well regulated, right? And that's why, like, often when like little boys are fighting, they'll fight and they'll do this and that, and then one of them will like bite the other one, and it's like, "Ow, that, like, don't do that. That really hurt." And it's like, "Oh, okay." And then they go back to playing, and it's because they're learning, like, "Oh, okay, like, I can grab you, I can't bite you," right? Or it's like, okay, like, and then with a girl, like, I can shake her hand, but I can't yank her hand, right? I can only do that with my brother. And so it's them sort of figuring that out, and also why, and I mean, this is much more stereotypically girls, but like they'll play houses because they're trying to understand the nuances of social interaction. And so it's like there's some really good studies that talk about boys needing to play with their dads, because it's important that they play with an adult and not just kids their age, because they need to learn how physical interaction is regulated with adults, not with just other kids, because those are different rule sets. All of this to say, sorry, I'm nerding out, is when kids are engaging in that, right, engaging in play, doing things dangerously, right, in a good way, they need support. And that support needs to be such that they continue to do the dangerous thing carefully, right? Not to do a dangerous thing radically with no self-regard for preservation. That's not exactly what we want. But we also don't want to either say, well, that's a little bit odd, so you're not allowed to do it at all, right? And so you're sort of smothered. Or that you do it and you're immediately met with an extreme negative consequence, right? You go try out, you have no support, and people, like, somebody really does laugh at you, right? It's the worst feeling in the world. Now you throw off all of sports in entirety because you didn't have enough support on that first interaction. And so your brain's telling you, okay, we don't do sports. And it'll go 30 years before, and you won't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And which is really tragic because there's just one incident when you were, 7. And so what I think is very valuable for adults to do, and I think this is part of where coaching comes in, is to provide that realm of sufficient, we'll call it sufficient danger, even though a lot of times it's not actually dangerous, right? But
Right.
it's to fill a gap to help kids to be in a scenario where they're safe enough that they can engage with the world, but also the world's dangerous enough that they're learning, right? Because if you have no threat, if there's no problem, if there's nothing really to interact with, well, you may be perfectly safe, but you're just sort of, one day you'll be 30 years old and still a baby, and that's not really what you want, right? And that's not what anyone wants for their child. And so, again, I'm off monologuing, but it seems like one of the things you guys are doing is providing space for kids to develop. And that seems kind of self-evident, but it seems like you're doing that in a very big way.
Yeah. So what it sounds like we're talking about here, what I want to term it, is the concept of the laws, boundaries, and consequences, which I love.
Okay. Yeah.
I love laws, boundaries, and consequences. So that can be a natural law, or it can be a imposed law, like a civil law, or whatever whatever you want to term it as. But laws, boundaries, consequences. We also have the natural consequences, and then we have all these imposed consequences. If you want to very simply break it into just the two.
Yeah.
And I love that, but for every child to be able to learn that, if they can learn that now, it saves a lot of heartache and a lot of issues later.
Right.
And so sometimes we almost protect our children too much from these natural consequences. So my take on it is, if the natural consequence, or even if it is an imposed consequence from the school, they're acting out, little Johnny's acting out in school, and the teacher gives them detention, or whatever the case is. Oftentimes you see these parents kind of like, but he was whatever, ABC, he was just trying to tell you that he needed to go to the bathroom, or whatever. And they step in too soon. Where for me, I'm like, if you don't have to be the one that's imposing this consequence, all you have to do is support it. Utilize that. Like, that's a safe consequence for them to learn. And even if it wasn't completely 100% fair, like maybe they were just trying to ask to go to the bathroom, but for whatever reason this happened, and they're learning. It's a learning opportunity, and they're going to either learn that mom and dad's going to step in and save me from it. I'm justified in doing this. I'm entitled to do this, or there are consequences. And even if it was a misunderstanding, there's still a consequence that can come from this. So in imposed consequences, when somebody else is imposing the consequence, me as a parent, now that allows me, or as a coach, either way, but that allows me to step in and just support the child in the consequence. Like, okay, this really sucks. Like, we got detention. We're going to go to detention. You're going to detention tomorrow.
Right.
Or if it's a situation at home where they got grounded from their phone, or their phone got locked or taken away or whatever. It's like, yeah, this sucks, and it's affecting all of us. We can't go out cruise on our electric scooter this weekend because we were doing things we weren't supposed to. We were riding through the neighbor's grass, whatever. Sure. So we lost this for the weekend, and it kind of sucks because I was hoping you could get out and go do some things also. Now you're here, and so we're gonna do this together. We're suffering through this together. I want to unify with them now in this opportunity, instead of becoming against them of like, well, you caused this for yourself, and I'm also against you. It's like, no, I'm here to teach and to walk through this with you. And if that's part of the experience, and whether that comes from the realm of a parent or from a coach, it's a great opportunity. So I just like to bring that up. But it's the laws, boundaries, consequences. Every law or every action even has a consequence to it. Right. And so oftentimes I like to use I do what I call the pause glove, the pause hand. And it's anytime I have a big emotion, I call them capital emotions. I know that I need to go to my toolbox and get a tool. Now, if it's just a small job, I'm not going to put on a glove. Like, I have emotions and stuff happens all day long. I'm not going to put on a glove for that. But if it's a big job, a capital emotion job, okay, now I know I need to go to my toolbox and grab my glove, or grab a tool. So the first thing I'm doing is put on my glove. As I have this glove on, I can see that I have the event. Okay, what just happened? I have the thought. Okay, what am I thinking about it? I have the emotion. What am I feeling about it? I have the behavior, or what am I going to do about it? And I have the consequence of, okay, now what's going to happen
next?
with what I do? If I don't like the consequence, I'm going to go back to the behavior finger and change the behavior before I do it. The reason I bring that up is oftentimes we get in this idea that we're wearing a mitten, right? Where it's like they're all like controlled together. Well, I feel this. This happened to me, and I thought this. Most of the time, they don't even really recognize the thoughts. It's always, it seems to most of the time jump from this happened to me, and I feel this way, whether they're actually articulating that or whether it's just they're feeling it. I feel this way, and because I felt this way, I acted this way. And they get this idea that the emotion and the behavior are attached. And while they, at some level, when we feel a certain when we feel a certain way,
Right.
it causes us to act out in a certain way, or at least invites us to act out in a certain way, because the behavior is just communication. So I often tell parents that the behavior is just communication. We just need to shift the communication, teach them to communicate it in a different way.
Right.
Whether they don't know how to communicate it, whether they don't know what they're fully feeling, whatever the case is. But to be able to separate the two, that the emotion and the behavior are completely separate fingers. They don't have to go together. We don't even really have a full choice of the initial thought that pops into our head, right? Like we have thoughts pop into our head all day long. We don't have to. We can choose whether to entertain them or not, whether to change the thought, but we don't really have control over the initial thought. We don't really have control over the initial emotion that pops into our head. But we always have that control of the behavior. That's why I call it the pause glove. Okay, we need to pause, look at the big emotion, and then start to work through the
That's
just,
good.
Just one tool. I don't know what sparked that to share that, but that's
Yeah.
part of that law of boundary consequences. I guess it's the action versus the consequence, the behavior,
Right.
and the consequence.
No, I think that's very good. And I like one of the things like that you talked about a little bit earlier was the world is not always just, and realizing that, I think that like a disservice to more authoritarian parenting when every time the kids get in a fight, you have to figure out exactly who did what and dole out punishment in perfect justice. That's not how the world works. Sometimes you are going to get in trouble when you shouldn't have been.
Right.
And one of the things that you have to learn as you attempt towards adulthood is, well, sometimes it just sucks and there's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes you have to sort of make a concession to the powers that be, as bad as it may feel. And also you're going to have to realize that life's not a court case, right? You don't go through the facts on every single issue for days at a time until you get to perfect justice. It's just not going to happen. And so I think learning how to handle that nuance is really important. And then within that, to also understand what you're talking about here with like behavior, feelings, emotions, behaviors, and consequences, where you do have control and what to do. It reminds me of like the Serenity Prayer, right? Give me the serenity to accept what I can't change, the wisdom to change the things or the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? And so what that really embodies, and what I think we're really talking about here, is the nuance of adulthood. And I think that's why teens are so interesting and engaging to work with, is because they are in a time that is hyper nuance focused. Everything is getting much more complicated because a lot of the boundaries that you had as a kid are no longer there.
Right. And and life isn't black and white. It's not always fair and just, or just and unjust. There's a lot of gray area in between there. And so as a parent or even as a coach, if I hear, Johnny got in a fight today at school, he hit someone. And obviously when you meet with them, there's always the justification of why.
Right.
The other person started it, they did. And I think it's okay as a parent to recognize that, you know what, it's okay that you defended yourself, but it doesn't take away the consequence of it. Like, good job on defending yourself. Great work. Like, good job not just being a punching bag. You know, we have to stand up for ourselves. That's part of life. We have to stand up for ourselves. Yeah. But nonetheless, the rules are we can't fight at school.
Right.
And therefore, we are going to have a consequence of fighting at school. But it's not that I'm saying you should not protect yourself, right?
Right.
And so there's different. I feel like the pendulum has swung so far over. It's like, hitting's not the answer. Well, I agree. Like hitting's not the
Right.
answer. Like
Unideal.
we can kind of agree with that. But like, but defending ourselves, that's something we want our child. We want our child to have enough self respect, enough dignity to say, hey, this is wrong, and I'm going to protect myself first in words and then in action.
Right.
And I'll do that if I have to. Now it does not take away the consequence of that, and I can sit with my child in that and say, this happened, and I'm proud of you for defending yourself. But now we still have this consequence, and we're going to go through this consequence together, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to see if we can prevent these things from happening in the future.
Yeah.
Everything's a lesson. I don't have to spend time hashing over, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. We can touch on it, and we can move forward. Everything's about moving forward.
Actions speak louder than words. Yeah, that's very interesting. You reminded me of like the like TV show Dad, who it's like, my son got into a fight, and it's like, did he hit you first? Yep. Did you do the right thing? Yep.
Yeah, great work, but don't do it again.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and I think that's something interesting, and it's we won't wade too far into it because it's definitely a divisive topic, but sort of the question of what men ought to do and how they ought to be, and it is something that I consider a lot because it relates a lot to mental health, right? Because what is a mentally healthy man, right? And how does that relate to questions of aggression, right?
Right.
And communication and stubbornness. The big 5 personality traits. This is something I focus on a lot in school that I love. Sadly, I don't get to work with it very much right now, but it's the academic standard for personality testing, right? So it's not like, I'm going to upset a lot of people here. It's not like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, where there's very little, if any, research support for these. If you like them, that's great. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but there's not really any clinical research-based support. The Big 5 is used a lot in research. There's a lot of evidence for it, and it's a lot harder to explain, but it's because it's a much more academic tool. And one of the things that is sort of a presupposition in it is there's spectrums for the Big 5 are openness to experience and therefore closeness, right? Spectrum. Conscientiousness, so sort of your desire to work, your work ethic. It's also sort of how much does things not being done irritate you. Extroversion and introversion. Agreeableness and disagreeableness, and neuroticism versus sort of ignorance to neurotic emotion. And with the exception of clear sort of pathology, the reason that those spectrum exist is because there's actually a time and place for every point on that spectrum.
Yeah.
There's a time when you ought to be disagreeable, and there's a time when you really need to be agreeable. There's a time to be extroverted, a time to be introverted. And with agreeableness, it relates to, I know we're going off topic, but I think it does relate to what we're talking about. With agreeableness, for example, agreeable people have more friends. Shocker, right? Because they're more agreeable. They're more compromising to the social situation. They make less money. Disagreeable people are much better at saying, if you don't pay me this, I'm going to start looking for other jobs. Versus agreeable people are like, well, it's whatever you can pay me.
Right.
And so different situations call for difference, and that means that there's a natural breadth of personality that humans have to solve different problems. That's why different people are better at different issues. But I think that one of the things that, bringing it back to what you're doing with coaching kids, like one of the things that kids have to do is figure out where they fit on that spectrum. And usually it's going to be different than where their parents fit. And one of the, I would say, the most essential nuances, which I think nuance is the word of the day today. One of the essential nuances is, what is the difference between, is this between figuring out it's right versus wrong versus this is how my parents did it, this is how I do it. Or this is how my teachers or my friends did it, this is how I do it, right? My dad, when he got an extra drink on the receipt, just paid it. But my friend, pulled the waiter aside and was like, hey, why is this here? This shouldn't be here. What am I going to do? How am I going to solve that issue? And there really isn't a direct right or wrong. It's kind of a gamble, actually. It depends on the mentality of you and your waiter. And so these are, again, going back to why I think coaching is so important. These are the things that you have to just figure out in a supported environment. And it seems like that's what coaching provides.
Right. And I love
when done well.
Yes, for sure. And I love the word you used is it depends. Because so much of life is it depends.
Right.
And going back to the example of somebody getting in a little fight, a scuffle at school, or at home for that matter. It's not so much like we said, black and white of did you do this or did you not do this, but how did you do it?
Right.
Which there's two sides of that. There's one of being in control. Were you in control of yourself? Did you do it out of rage? Like,
Right.
did you, whether it was defending yourself or whatever, was it out of rage? Like, or were you controlled? It's the level of defense that I took there. Was I overly aggressive, or did I just meet it where it needed to be? Did I to draw a hard boundary of, hey, you will not talk to me that way. You will not touch me. You will not push me.
Right.
There's a level of that we have to decide in the moment.
Right.
And so to help somebody understand that they can choose and that they all through life are going to have that it depends situation is I think more helpful than giving this black and white, like you do not hit, you never hit. It's like, well, yeah, ideally we never hit. Ideally we never have to.
Right.
But let's teach them how to think, how to problem solve, how to know whether they are being too forceful or just forceful enough to help hold that boundary. The other side that I wanted to touch on was the two ways of doing things. So we can do things with a heart at peace, a heart in peace, or a heart in war. And so we see that through all sorts of things. So people think, oh, you're going to war, like you must be like at war. Well, I can go to war with a heart in peace. I can go to war and protect my family or protect myself and not hate the other person. Right. I don't have to be angry to do a certain behavior, a certain act.
Yeah.
And so
this is boundaries. Yeah.
Yes.
This is I'm doing this because it's the right thing, not because I'm angry.
Right. So how am I doing it? Is it in this heart of peace or is it in this heart of war? Am I doing it as revenge? And we see this a lot in consequences when parents start to give consequences. Sometimes they're pushed to their limit, right? And I feel for these parents, like they've been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed.
Right.
And then they come in with these consequences, and sometimes the question that gets asked is my consequence too harsh? And so I like to just go back to why are we giving the consequences? Is it out of anger? Is it out of spite? Like, is that a revenge? Like, are we trying to like punish them because we're angry, or are we giving this consequence with the heart and peace of like, I'm giving this to you because I want you to learn,
right?
And we're gonna learn this together, and I'm gonna show you how this is done, and we're gonna walk forward together, versus you're grounded and you're in trouble and whatever the thing is. But because I'm angry. So if we can start to help the parents see that when you're acting out in anger, the child's watching that. So I can act in two ways. And that's where it goes back to, I can act with a heart in peace or a heart in war. Right. And so it depends, oftentimes determines, or for me, is how were you acting? Was it at peace or was it at war? So I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
No, I think that was great. Yeah, that was very good. I almost jokingly called you Sun Tzu. One of the things I like to touch on before we end is we've talked a lot about kids and adolescents and we work with them, but obviously there's a really big part of this equation, which is the parents. Yeah. So what do you do with parents? How do you interact with them? I'm curious both in terms of advice and encouragement.
Sure.
How you work with parents in these situations.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously the parents are in charge, right? They're and so we're there to support and to unite as much as we can the parent-child relationship. And oftentimes though, when we go into a home and we get to work with children and professionals that work with other people's kids all day long and have great success with them, mind you. But something I often like to say, and I learned this concept, I think from a brother-in-law. But he just pointed out to me one day, he says it's hard to see the picture when you're inside the frame. And so it doesn't matter if I'm a psychiatrist or a therapist or a doctor or a coach. Sometimes we need outside perspective. Right. And so it's one of the concepts I like these parents to recognize, because they start to beat themselves up. Like, oh, I'm a bad parent. Why can't I either help my child in general, whether they're helping other children or not? Like, why can't I help my child? What's wrong with my child, or what's wrong with me? And so it's that concept. You can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. So we have to have that outside help. And it kind of relieves some some of the pressure of like, I'm not a bad person. I just struggle with my child right now.
Yeah.
And so having that understanding, but then to be able to sit down with them and just walk them through some of the basic concepts, at whatever level they want that. I can work directly with them as I'm working with their child, just on the go of like, hey, this is what we worked on today. These are some if you want to work on the same things, here's some tools for you. If it's a parent that's like, nope, just help my child and move
Right.
on, then we're just going to help the child and move on.
Right.
But those families that are having the greatest success is the one that the parents and the child are working simultaneously. They're working together to try to get on the same page in that unity. And so we get to go in and we get to hopefully, ideally, create the environment for those discoveries to start to happen. And as those discoveries start to happen, we get to be on the phone with parents at the same time. Maybe they'll text us or call us throughout the day too. Say, hey, he's acting up. I tried these three techniques that you taught us. And sometimes it's just reminding them that, okay, the techniques are there, but now where's your way of being? Let's get back to a way of being. Calm yourself, go in with love, that heart and peace. And then ultimately step back. You don't have control over everything.
Right.
We only have control of what we have control over. And by trying to take control, we oftentimes just lose more control.
Right.
And so it's not even about control. If I build the relationship, I can have influence. And so it's just reminding those parents, focus first on the relationship. Everything else will fall into place once the relationship is there.
Beautiful. All right. Anything else you want to say before we go?
I just, I'm very humbled and appreciative to be on here with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
I think you would make an amazing coach yourself.
Thanks, man.
And
You make me blush.
it's been a pleasure to be here with you today.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you?
So you can find us online at www.crossroadsdiscovery.com. And that's probably the simplest way.
Cool. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Redemption Psychiatry is a private practice located in the greater Phoenix area that focuses on mental health with advanced treatments for depression, anxiety, ADHD, OCD, and a whole lot of other mood disorders. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please feel free to give us a call today or go to our website and set up for a new patient appointment. Thanks.